West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
Love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, September 4th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Well, the progressives here in Colorado have a solution to the problems we face. Yes, if we just had more of your money, then we would be able to turn this state around. Yes, it's you Coloradans with your money in your bank accounts that are being stingy and not turning it over to progressives and special interest groups that are the real problem here. And so they have an idea. No more flat tax. And if you're particularly a successful Coloradan, well, then you're the one that's going to carry the burden to bring us into the promised land of government programs. You just got to give it up. More and more money going into the coffers of the state of Colorado is what's going to solve our problems, not addressing the 50% spending increase that's taken place here recently. No. It's more of your money. So we'll get into this with Kristi Burton Brown and how conservatives and reasonable Coloradans can hopefully fight back against this. Now is time, though, for news and comment. Mr. Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good Thursday morning, 59 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 87 beautiful degrees today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, Colorado's new semi-automatic weapons law is already facing a legal challenge. The Colorado State Shooting Association and 6 individuals filed a federal lawsuit arguing the measure signed by Governor Polis in April makes buying certain guns too costly and time-consuming.
What we have seen is gun control legislation has never had a positive impact on bringing down mass shootings or violent crime that's acted within or enacted by a firearm.
Daniel Fenlison with the Colorado State Shooting Association says the group knew the law would be a problem the moment it was signed. The law, set to take effect in 2026, requires background checks, sheriff-issued training cards, multi-day courses, and waiting periods before purchase. Supporters, including Democratic Senator Tom Sullivan, say the law has strong public backing and will withstand the challenge. State officials are declining to comment on pending litigation.
Let me help you here, everybody, real quick. When it comes to the constitutionality of a law, its public backing has nothing to do with it. That's why you have constitutionally protected rights.
Yes.
Right? It's because if we were just in a pure democracy, that would be 2 wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner. Okay? You have rights that protect you from that type of thing. So, Mr. Sullivan, we appreciate your comments. When it comes to whether or not these laws are constitutional, it has nothing to do with them. Just FYI. By the way, we're going to be joined by the Colorado State Shooting Association the 8 o'clock hour.
Awesome. Amen to that. Thank God. To the moon. NASA Administrator Sean Duffy this morning.
I think it's important to be honest, right? And so China's making great leaps in their space program. And it's important to note that there's civil and military space program. There's no difference. They're all the same. And as you know, the U.S. comes in peace, right? We want our partners around the world to come together, and we want to win the second space race to the moon. But we know that China wants to get there before us. We're not going to let it happen. We hope we can do first part of the year. That is going to be a mission, a 4-man crew that's going to go out and around the moon. Artemis 3 is going to be when we land back on the moon. We're going to stay for a longer period of time, anywhere from 8 to 12 days on the moon. The longest time in the past was 3 days. And again, we're going to start sending payloads to the moon to start building our base camp. And then from there, again, we want to get in the early 30s to Mars. And this is critical. What we learn on the space station, what we learn on the mission to the moon is going to be critical to make sure we can sustain life. It's an 8+ month mission to Mars, and then you got to stay there, and then you got to come back. So again, it's critical lessons learned to make sure we can accomplish all those goals.
All right, exciting. Loose tire is being blamed for a deadly crash in the southbound lanes of I-25 near Ridgegate and Lone Tree on Tuesday. A tire broke loose from a northbound vehicle, bounced into the southbound lanes, and caused the deadly crash. The northbound driver pulled over to the shoulder and spoke to police following the crash, which is still under investigation. Phone call between DJT and Ukrainian President Zelensky is set to take place today in another attempt to arrange peace talks with Russia. 47 says after today's conversation with Zelensky, he should know pretty much what we're going to be doing. DJT also says they're still deciding if his administration will use the National Guard to fight crime in Chicago. Trump suggested that he may instead send troops to New Orleans, where he said they have a great governor who wants us to come in, help things out. Illinois Governor J.B.'s big boy Pritzker strongly opposes the use of troops in Chicago. Of course he does. It's all political to him. ICE has busted a massive illegal alien pedophile network in California. 10 criminals arrested on Wednesday. Epstein survivors say they may compile their own list of clients and urging the DOJ to release the names of those involved. Survivor Lisa Phillips said the victims know who the regulars were in Epstein's world as dozens gathered in D.C. to push Congress for action while the first set of related documents is made public. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is pushing for the files to be released in their entirety. She joined some of Epstein's victims yesterday as well and said she was willing to name names of Epstein associates. All right, the last story here, let's see, DJT calling the recent jamming of fake info into the files a Democratic hoax. However, it's coming across as if he's calling the entire Epstein crime ring a hoax. So they got to clean that up because it is not helping at all. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell says Taylor Swift is welcome to play at the Super Bowl halftime show. Goodell made the comment on the Today Show on Wednesday. Of course, that would be up to the superstar herself, really. And they don't have to force her to do that. And Jay-Z, who's a Rock Nation oversees Super Bowl halftime entertainment. NFL kicks off tonight. Cowboys and the reigning champions take on the Eagles in Philly, and the Broncos continue for kickoff. And devil's advocate, guys, on the minds, on the silly team photo. I was just thinking about it as we continued that last hour.
Yes.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Please do.
Because the one thing you don't want to be in football is soft. But as I said, minds players can handle this. I believe that, so that's why it's okay. But I was thinking of Alabama. Over the weekend, they were the softest team in college football, and they got rolled, okay? And it's a big deal. And some people are saying because one of their star players, how should I say this? He's in the mafia, maybe, Alphabet Mafia.
Oh, yeah.
And he walked into the locker room with one of those little cushy stuffed animal things.
What?
Yes.
A football player did this?
Yes. So, so a lot of people are saying, the reason they're soft, one of their best players, if not their best player, subscribes to the other magazine. And so, toughness is an issue and culture is huge in college football. So just playing devil's advocate, got to be tough. Alabama was soft over the weekend.
Would love to have the Colorado School of Mines coach on. By all means, this is the show to do it.
I agree. I'm right there. Maybe he'll join. He's a great guy. Yeah, I mean, he may join you. Hopefully, he'll join.
Be a lot of fun.
Hopefully, good luck to them tonight against West Texas. By the way,
beat them.
One of the great stadiums in college football, Division II, in Canyon, Texas, West Texas.
On a side note, when we're talking about football toughness, given the masculine culture inside of football, I would submit that the individual that says, "Hi guys, I'm gay," and says it and admits it inside of that culture, probably the toughest guy in the room. It's very easy to ignore it and to play. The person that stands up and says, "I am," toughest guy in the room, hands down. So individuals that say, well, because the other person may play for their team, they're obviously soft. No. Tell me the stones and the spine it takes to stand up in that culture and say, I am this. That takes more backbone than most of those players will ever have in their entire life.
I agree. Mentally tough.
Yeah.
However, if he's a receiver and there's a linebacker standing in front of him, I mean, this day and age, most of the players, whatever, do what you want in your own time.
Talk about if I am that player, if I'm the gay player on that football team.
Yep.
Yeah, you've just given me all the psychological warfare. I am going to win. Especially if you're going to make fun of me for being gay. Oh, God. I'm going to be commenting about how tight your pants are. I'm going to be talking about the fact that you remind me of an old boyfriend. I'm going to talk about how when the sweat glistens off your forehead. Oh, my God. I am going to get so far inside your head, you will be crying in the fetal position by halftime.
Bill, I got to bring this up because it happened at my son's soccer game. Okay. So I want to pivot over here to soccer real quick. Okay.
Yeah, I'm curious.
So my son plays defense. There was a striker that was getting mixed up trying to get by the defense, trying to get on the other side of the defense, that type. And my son's team wasn't allowing him to. So my son's like middle of the field. Over on the right side of the field, he mixes it up. Not my son, but another player on my son's team. They get their legs mixed up, and they both go down. The opposing player gets up, takes his fist, and punches my son's teammate right in the ear as hard as he could.
Wow.
Red flagged, red carded, all
Kick
that
him
stuff.
out, kick him out.
Did that happen in soccer? Did it go straight to fists sometimes?
Well, again,
when Billy was involved.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Here's the thing. One, I am probably in this conversation not the best example because you have to realize I played for a team that probably was on the Denver Police Department gang watch list.
So yes, it did. I've never seen soccer go to fists.
Go to fists. I can count in one season 4 bench clearing brawls we had. Yes.
I'd go to that soccer match.
The team that I played for, we had a meeting with the Colorado Youth Soccer Association as to whether or not they were going to ban our team, force us to break up, and they were instituting rules that no more than 2 of us could play together on any soccer team in Colorado. We luckily missed that sort of a punishment. We had other punishments that were instituted on the team. Yeah, we were fighters, and the idea being that if that was one of our players, if the guy hit one of our players, that guy's probably going to be, let's just say, eating his food through a straw for the next 7 months.
So you punched a guy on the soccer field.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is,
speaking of marketing,
most
do you
of the
ever
time, though,
punch
I didn't
somebody?
have to.
No.
Blake, do you ever punch
no.
somebody in football?
Yeah.
No,
I think for me is,
absolutely not.
most of the time I didn't have to because I was a defender, and the guys that were the real brawlers were one of our strikers and two of our midfielders. So normally the
They're
brawl,
on the other side
yeah,
of the field.
it happened on the other side of the field. So by the time I got there, most of it was already done. In fact, one of our players, now people that are in soccer will know the old school name, is a team that was a very prestigious club team called the Kickers. And I watched my friend that's a striker beat up 8 of the Kickers before I could get there, and just by himself. And what it was one of those, like, you see the kung fu movies where they're standing there and then guy runs up and he's like, pop, and the kid goes down. He turns, next kid comes up, pop, kid goes down, turns around, pop. By the time I get there, there's like 8 guys laying around on the ground grabbing their faces, and he's just standing there. I'm like, well, yeah, you're getting red carded. I'm like, come on, let's go. Yeah, nothing left.
So we
taking care of everything.
We got a text message here from 7537. I'm a Mines football alumni. I did not like what was happening the last 2 years under the previous coach. Very undisciplined. The change in culture is needed.
There you go.
There you go.
There, alumni and boosters talk.
I love our listeners, man.
Yeah.
We could throw anything out there, and we'd end up with somebody that's actually directly connected with it.
Thank you,
is 7537.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, it's 50. Hey, by the way, marketing for soccer. I would go to a Rapids game if they played like Billy Thorpe.
Clip that.
Yeah.
I would change the MLS, man. I mean, you're allowed to hit people and punch people.
Yeah, make it like hockey.
Well, the thing is that I always tell my kids when we're watching, because of the rules right now, that when I was playing, as long as I touched the ball first, I could molest you afterwards. It didn't matter. I could put my hands in places that I really shouldn't be. I could hit you in certain places. It did not matter. And so the only key was you had to get to the ball first. If I was attacking the ball first, free time. And I took
Blake,
advantage
make sure
of it.
you clip that.
I was just thinking that. Because I'm preoccupied, I was not rolling, and I just looked down. I'm like, God.
Excellent.
Yeah, exactly. Lucky for you.
We'll get Adam to clip it. He's laughing over there.
There you go. Good. 58 in Brighton, 57 in Highlands Ranch. That's Billy, man. 59 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Some warm September temperatures today, but a cool down coming tomorrow. Will be mid to upper 80s and sunny this evening and overnight. As a front comes in, could see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms, lower 50s, gusty northeast winds. Brisk north winds and cooler. Only low 70s Friday with a few showers. Upper 40s Friday night, upper 70s Saturday. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, they're at it again. The liberal groups pushing a 2026 ballot measure to overhaul Colorado's income tax with a graduated rate system. They want to jack up taxes on folks earning over $500,000 to raise $2 billion for big government programs like health care, education, public safety, while tossing a small tax cut to lower earners. This is classic left-wing money grab. The Taxpayer Bill of Rights keeps our flat 4.4% income tax fair for everyone. Pays the same rate. No class warfare. Remember, they always say, pay your fair share. Pay your fair share. Well, no more. These activists want to gut Tabor's protection, slapping high earners with rates up to 9.5%. And it's not just owners, it's businesses. If your business makes over $1 million a year, you're going to be paying a higher rate. So progressives sending the message to Colorado businesses that you successful ones out there, please move to Texas. Apparently. Well, joining us because they're always on the ground fighting the good fight, and they're winning in many cases on these battles is Kristi Burton Brown with Advanced Colorado. KBB, thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show this morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, guys.
So this is not definitively on the ballot, but folks over at the Bell Policy Center working to get it out there want to kill Colorado's flat tax, which I find interesting because Jared Polis doesn't want an income tax. Progressives saying, oh, no, we want a graduated one. Give us some insight on this.
Sure. Well, it's a very interesting repeated attempt of the far left to change our tax system. Their dream would be to repeal TABOR and to just give constant streams of money and slush funds to the government. So this is yet one more attempt to do it. And one thing that I think is really interesting is when you look back at the track record of Colorado, like how have these kind of ballot measures fared in the past? We actually see that Colorado voters have struck them down and voted no by large margins over and over. You can look back to 2016, 2018, and they tried to change the income tax structure in Colorado. And one of those years, they actually made an attempt to specifically do this progressive income tax hike, taxing people who make more money. And they even said, and the money's going to go for education. And Colorado voters actually struck it down by 29 points.
Whoa.
So and you can look at just a vast variety of times they've attempted this. They've said, how about a 5-year change? And Colorado voters said no by 27 points. They tried a different version, and Colorado voters said no by 7 points. And then you look at their attempts to change TABOR, Prop CC, Prop HH in 2019 and 2021, and Colorado voters said no by 19 points and by 7 points. So, TABOR is here to stay. People love it in Colorado. And our flat tax system is one of the things that actually keeps our economy semi-stable, even with Democrats in control. So, of course, the progressive far left wants to come in, repeal parts of TABOR, drive businesses out of the state, and wreck the revenue in our state that we need to keep jobs here.
That's Kristi Burton Brown with Advanced Colorado. Now, Kristi, we've had progressives on this show, and they always lay out this vision that if we just had a little bit more, that those billionaires living in Aspen and Vail and the rest of the, posh areas around Colorado, if we just got a little bit more of their money, then the government programs would open up, and the health care that could be provided, the education, the roads, the public safety, homelessness would be solved if we just had a little bit more. What's wrong with that style of thinking, Kristi Burton Brown?
Right. Well, Jeff, it's never enough for them. And I think that's a huge problem is, in their opinion, government could never have enough money. They want to take money from people. They think government can make decisions better instead of saying, like average Colorado families have to do, we have a budget. Let's stick within it. Let's prioritize. Let's deliver on what taxpayers are actually asking for instead of saying they have to give more or we can't do what they want. It's just a very short-sighted way of thinking, but it's the classic far left view that government should always have more, give them a slush fund, give them a blank check. And one thing we can see that really illustrates this is the Bell Policy Center, who has put in these ballot measures just yesterday, put in multiple versions, and one of the versions literally wouldn't designate the money to go to any specific area. They take a significant portion of the $2.3 billion this would give to the state and say, it's up to the legislature. They can spend it however they want. So they're illustrating for everyone that their real goal is to give the government a blank check. And, as they run through the title board process, they may see that their versions that allocate this money to specific areas may fare a little better with title language. But in the end, we see that is their goal. That's their vision, is government should have unlimited sources of revenue. Let's, repeal this part of TABOR that limits the government and keeps them within semi-smart spending restraints. And I think one other piece that I want to point out is in the Colorado Sun article about this, Chris Kennedy, who's in charge of the Bell Policy Institute right now, even admitted that they don't have the funds right now to go collect signatures. I think, we always should take threats to TABOR seriously, and ballot measures by the far left, we should say, okay, hey, they're really making an attempt at this. But it's also very interesting that they're admitting from the get-go that they don't have the money lined up. And in 2020, the Bell Policy Institute tried something very similar to this, spent $1 million trying to get signatures, and then had to pull it because they just couldn't get the rest of the signatures and couldn't raise the rest of the money. So I find that interesting, too, that they're back at it again after, multiple failed attempts. It's just not popular in Colorado to change our tax system. And I think, too, they want to say that their goal is to tax the wealthy. They love to use that line. This would affect tens of thousands of small businesses here in Colorado. They would implement this raised tax on small businesses that make $500,000 or more a year in profit. That is literally tens of thousands of small businesses here in Colorado that would be driven out of the state, possibly driven to close, and that's costing working families jobs, and they never talk about that piece.
Yeah, that's what struck me on this, right, is, look, rich people are going to find ways not to pay taxes. Case in point, Jared Polis didn't pay years of federal income taxes just as recently as the last decade. So they find ways out of it. But a business that's pulling in $500,000 in revenue or even $1 million in revenue is not that big of a business, right? That's maybe 5, 6, 7 employees. So they're not going to hire fancy accountants to be able to find ways to get around this. This is a direct shot at small businesses that's going to force them out and leave. It just becomes another reason to leave the state. I mean,
right.
Kristi Burton Brown, nothing that Democrats have done with the total control they've had for nearly the past decade has made a single thing in my life more affordable in the state of Colorado. Now, I can't think of one thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Right. No, you're just right. When you talk to voters, their number one concern in Colorado remains cost of living. And when you see one-party control for as many years as we've had it, they know this is voters' top concern. And we're the fourth most expensive state in the nation, according to CNBC survey and statistics that they evaluated. Colorado is not an easy state to live in. That's why we're having more people leave than move into the state. And this has resulted from policies at the top when they continue to pass their pet projects and fund what they want to fund instead of what citizens need to actually make a life here and raise a family here. So this is just another attempt. And I do think it's important to acknowledge this is an attempt by the very far left. You're going to see a lot of Democrats in the middle, like Jared Polis, not support progressive income tax hikes like this because they know it's not good for business. They know it's not good for working families, and they know it's not smart policy. And they also know it fails, that Colorado voters have historically shot these kind of attempts down, and especially when they have to repeal parts of TABOR to do this. 70% of Colorado voters across the political aisles love TABOR, want to keep it the way it is. So it's an attempt by the far left. Like I said, you got to take it seriously, and we'll absolutely fight it if they make the ballot. We'll lead the opposition against it at Advance Colorado. But they have tried this before and failed to even make the ballot, and they're saying themselves that they don't have the money to do it right now. They may go out and raise it, but it's a far left attempt that we've got to fight.
That's Kristi Burton Brown from Advance Colorado. Question I've got for you is, isn't that going to be the Democrats' or liberal argument on this, cost of living? What I see the strategy behind the Democrats when they're going to go in front of voters is going to be stuff is so expensive, and if we get more of a share from these rich people, we can institute these government programs that are going to make things less expensive for you. Whether or not that is functionally true, isn't cost of living, in my opinion, going to be the argument that Democrats are going to make? All the stuff that both you and Jeff talked about, oh my gosh, this is awful, and people not getting ahead, I feel is exactly the message the Democrats are going to bring to the voters to try to get this thing passed. Your thoughts?
So I think it's a great question, Bill, and I think they always love to message things in deceptive ways where they think they can persuade people. I think you can use that exact same messaging on the opposite side of the campaign, though, too, and say this is exactly what's going to drive business out of the state. It's going to crush small businesses, and therefore it's going to take jobs away from working families. That is going to drive the cost of living up in our state and make it nearly impossible to live here if this passes. So,
did that message work with Gallagher Amendment, though? Because that was kind of the same thing. And voters.
I think Gallagher Amendment is a different animal because that was specifically related to property taxes. Income tax, I think, is a very different animal. And if you look at those ballot measures across history, like some of the ones that I mentioned in 2016, 2018, 19, 23, 21, people specifically said no to income tax hikes.
Yeah.
Because it directly relates to TABOR. And so I think that's almost the key piece here is they have to mess with TABOR to change our income taxes. And people are very attached to TABOR in Colorado. If you tell them TABOR is being repealed and that they're changing your income tax system, and that is directly tied to your cost of living here in Colorado, I think Colorado voters are already on the side of TABOR. They don't want to see it attacked. They've sided with TABOR time and time again, so that is really going to hurt them.
I agree. I think you're right, and that's Kristi Burton Brown from Advanced Colorado. I think TABOR has become, I hesitate to say this, but almost like the political third rail inside of Colorado. It's not necessarily on the level of Social Security, but it's real close. And I personally, I'm just going to say it for the audience, I've changed my view on how dangerous it is to go after TABOR over the last 15 to 18 years. You come back to me 15, 18 years ago, I thought there was going to be an avenue, not saying I was agreeing with it, but I thought there was an avenue for Democrats to go after TABOR. I no longer believe that. I believe that it is so ingrained. Mm-hmm. I also think that most Colorado voters view our fiscal responsibility mostly because of TABOR, not because of a flat tax. I think you're right in identifying the idea that TABOR is going to be the real problem for them. However, I want to go back with the Gallagher Amendment. Part of that Gallagher Amendment, I think psychologically, the votes were based on the psychology of other people are winning while I'm being left behind. And I think that's part of the reason why it was so persuasive for people to change property tax. They felt that, hey, there are other people out here that are winners, so why can't they pay more in property taxes, not understanding that you were also considered a winner. Yeah. That was the problem. So are the voters possibly going to make the same mistake in this one, Kristi? Could the idea that we look at the prices at the grocery store, look at our taxes going up, we look at our gas going up, all of those things are going up, we feel like we're losing economically, anything, even if it's not the right lifeline, do we grab it just because? Your thoughts?
That's a great question, Bill, and I think there's a few points to that. I think, first of all, it's absolutely important that the opposition to this runs a very smart campaign and tells people the truth and sides with TABOR and gives voters a really compelling reason to vote against this. And there's a whole lot of compelling reasons to vote against it. But I also think the pro campaign has to make an actual realistic case to voters that giving a blank check and a slush fund to the government creates a better cost of living for them. And we haven't seen that happen in Colorado. Our budget has absolutely ballooned in Colorado. They have $44 billion a year, and we have the current situation with cost of living. So how is $2 billion more blank check to the government going to provide people with a better cost of living? That just isn't going to make sense to voters, so they're going to have trouble making that case. I think also when you look at Gallagher, I actually think one of the reasons that succeeded, there was a lot relating to wildfires in Colorado and fire departments wanting more money from property taxes. And sometimes when campaigns are run, the right thing happens at the right time, and people were persuaded by current circumstances, like wildfires going on in Colorado, that, oh my goodness, our fire departments really do need more, the system isn't working. That played into it a lot at the very end. And I really just don't think people see property taxes and income taxes protected by TABOR as the same thing. So I think those are apples and oranges. And sometimes people think, oh, all taxes are in the same boat. And it's just really not historically how voters have seen it across Colorado.
That's Kristi Burton Brown with Advanced Colorado. Now, KBB, are you all running a ballot initiative? Would we see a decrease? Are you going to possibly provide an alternative here that lowers taxes for people?
Well, Jeff, as you know, we propose a whole lot of really solid, popular ballot measures, take them through title board, see what kind of language we can get. And right now, we do have some going through the title board process right now that would be income tax cuts. So far, income tax cuts historically pass in Colorado. Jared Polis supports them too. They're popular across the board. So we do have some in the works going through title board. We'll see exactly what we'll run in the 2026 election. But at the very least, we're going to run a very strong opposition campaign against this if they're, in fact, able to run the funds to get it on the ballot. And that certainly remains to be seen.
Common sense ideas not winning a lot in Colorado right now, except for the good people at Advanced Colorado delivering victory for common sense policies here in our state, go visit advancecolorado.org, advancecolorado.org, and be sure to follow Kristi Burton Brown on X at x.com/KBB Colorado. Kristi, thank you for your time this morning.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Great to be with you.
Let's talk Mountain High Appliance Labor Day sale still going on. And we know Labor Day honors the hard work, and KitchenAid has been one of the hardest working brands since 1919. Mountain High Appliance is clearing out KitchenAid's floor models to make room for new arrivals so you can take advantage of the guaranteed lowest price. Mountain High has Colorado's most experienced sales staff, so why would you go anywhere else? Get to Mountain High Appliance today and experience the difference. That's Mountain High Appliance. All right, so here are some of the questions for this morning on this particular issue. Do you agree with progressives that graduated income tax would be better for Colorado? That if you are more successful, you should pay a higher tax rate? And that would mean a bit of a cut for those on the lower end of the economic spectrum. Do you believe that's the case? Or do you believe we need to keep Colorado's flat tax? TABOR is a win for our economy. It protects our freedoms, and it keeps government limited. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Do the rich need to pay more for the programs we want to implement in the state? Or is this type of tax structure going to drive them out of our communities? Text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
is enough. According to progressives here in the state of Colorado, we don't get taxed enough. And if you're successful individually or with your small business, they want you to pay a higher rate. The current rate here in Colorado for the income tax is a flat 4.4%. It's across everybody. No matter what class you're in, you pay 4.4%. Should we ask the rich to pay more as it relates to a percentage? Because if you look at straight dollar figures, 4.4% on $1 million is going to be more money than 4.4% on $10,000. But is it fair? Does it provide enough money for the programs we want to run? Bill Thorpe, your thoughts?
Yeah. I don't like flat taxes. I think it's an illusion that sounds great based on fairness and doesn't accomplish the goals. It sets more of a burden on the middle and lower income earners, and it's a gift to high income earners. Now, I am not necessarily, okay, the current proposal that I have seen for the Democrats to try to change the tax structure here in Colorado, I am not in favor. I want to make that clear. I am not in favor, but also I am not a supporter across the board on a flat tax rate. One of the problems we've seen is that the largest income gains and shares of wealth has been concentrated in the higher income earners. And so the idea that they haven't been successful, haven't been able to gain wealth and power, I think is not borne by the facts. They do. They have all this power and influence. And so the idea of a flat tax that would functionally reduce their tax burden, I don't think they're the ones that necessarily need the help or the relief. From what I see in the economy, they're not the ones that are having the hard time. They're not the ones that are facing any sort of a burden. But a flat tax universally creates less of a tax burden on those at the highest income brackets. So that's functionally why I'm against it. But again, I would not be in favor at all based on the proposals I've seen by Colorado Democrats.
Yeah,
I think they're wrong.
Tax.
Yeah, I think they're wrong. I think there are other ways to do it, but that's just me. How about you?
Well, nothing in Colorado is getting more affordable. Nothing's getting cheaper. We're spending by big magnitudes in some cases, a lot more money in particular areas like healthcare, for instance. Nearly a 400% increase in the amount of government money going to healthcare. And it's just getting more and more expensive. The burden that all of us carry to deliver for our families, to live within our means, does not get easier when the government gets more of our money. It's used inefficiently. It's often driven towards special interests. You see that with CEOs of homeless organizations making $300,000 a year, and they're not actually incentivized to solve the problems of homelessness. One of the most inefficient things you can do with a dollar is hand it to a government official. So the belief that Democrats are going to push here, that if they just got a little bit more, and Bill, you've heard it, and I'll say his name, and maybe we can get Deep Singh Badesha back in the studio, but he said it right here. It's just kind of spinning of a tale that if we just had a little bit more. If the guys, and you heard it from Steve Woodrow too, the guys in Aspen just gave up a little bit more. Then these programs that we've built with the government will all of a sudden start to flourish. Things will be great, all that. We don't have a tax problem in the state. We have a spending problem. Give the money back to the people. Keep government restricted. Out there in the free market is where human flourishing takes place, not with government programs. That's where the money belongs. So, thank God we have TABOR. Thank God we have a flat tax. Let's keep it there. It's the last thing we have that keeps Colorado from spinning off into crazy California land.
Yeah. You know, one of the problems that I have with a flat tax in many cases is how are you going to define work or income? And I think that's one of the biggest fallacies inside of a flat tax, because right now we have a whole bunch of loopholes that we create. And if we believe that either the state of Colorado or the nation would go to just a flat tax, that's it, no exceptions, you're fooling yourself. Of course, there are going to be carve-outs and exceptions. Of course. Have you seen the lobbyists?
Yes,
of
right.
course they're going to be.
Congress and all that.
And the problem is going to be that we're not ever going to get to this idea of a flat tax being universally, and I'm using air quotes, fair, because everybody pays the same rate, because that won't happen. There are going to be carve-outs. When someone is wealthy enough to take out a bank loan instead of pulling a salary to then deduct the amount of interest that they pay on paying themselves, and then because of the wealth they're able to pay it back, so they functionally have no income, they're not touched by a flat tax. That doesn't matter. But that only happens if you're on that upper echelon of the income. So the idea that it would become more fair, it doesn't happen, because that's not how anything is going to go. The other part is, everywhere else in society, we don't function off of a flat rate. We don't function on the idea of show up at the gas station and it costs you X amount of dollars to fill your tank, whether your tank is 10 gallons or 150 gallons. We don't function off that at the grocery store, that filling your cart costs this amount of money regardless of how much or how little you put into it. But based on how much or how little of your income, we think that the flat is economical and that somehow it's universally acceptable. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's an idea that functionally doesn't work.
Fire up the phones. Denver, tell us why this tax hike is either a win or a loss for Colorado. Phone line number 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. While we may disagree on taxes, spending, all that stuff, we do agree on this. One area you could invest in that will improve your home, that's affordable, and you'll get professional designer-level help, well, that's Gyrie's. And they've got locations all over the city of Denver. My wife and I visiting the one in Parker, sat down with a professional designer. They showed us an incredible selection of Hunter Douglas custom blinds, shades, and shutters. Not only do they provide those custom blinds, shades, and shutters, they provide paint, they provide home decor, and we got a personal design consultation. So you're not left with one of those big box stores trying to figure it out on your own. So whether your curtains are clashing or you just need a fresh look, Gyrie's has the solutions. Their designers are the experts. They help with you with everything from window treatments to full room decor. But here's the best part. They offer a personalized in-home consultation. They'll come to you with paint samples, with blind samples. You can see what it's actually going to look like in your home. So get the same exact expert advice that we got. Do yourself a favor. Get started today. Visit Gyrie's.com. That's GUIRYS.com. GUIRYS.com. Go see the great people there. Start your in-home consultation. You'll be sure to thank me. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Text messages are hot as progressives are out on the street corners and in front of those supermarkets trying to get you to sign a ballot initiative to get rid of the flat tax, move to a graduated income tax, which means the more you make, the more successful you are, the higher the percentage you're going to pay of taxes. Does this just punish the wealthy? Well, Jared Polis thinks so. He doesn't want an income tax at all. He thinks you tax what you don't want people to do, right? You tax smoking, you tax alcohol consumption, those types of things. Tax becomes a force to stop people from doing. So why do we tax income? Don't we want more people to make more income? That's Jared Polis. So Jared Polis is even at odds with this progressive effort. Text messages hot on this one. Didn't we already try to tax the rich to pay for programs? Look at the school meal programs. How's that working out? Same promise with this initiative. Why do we expect any different outcome?
Yeah. I think with the school lunch, though, that's total number of students and not having means testing. The idea of how much it was going to feed cost to feed those kids all the time. That was just dumb. The idea of trying to feed everybody, it was just absolutely ridiculous. It should have been means tested. And if it was for me, and I know the idea, the stigma of the kid getting the free lunch, etc. There are ways to get around that inside the school, like give the kids that have free lunch the fast pass. Have them get to the front of the line first.
Yeah.
They have a shorter line, they have a different line, and give them an extra option on the menu.
We had this. Yeah. The federal government provided these meals. So, look at the state now. We're buying lunch for rich kids in Cherry Hills.
No.
And we run out of money there, by the way.
When we're talking about the income, though, that if you're taking a larger portion of the income out of the company, do you then have to pay a larger portion of the tax?
I'm not sure I understand.
We'll talk that another day.
All right.
It's an interesting idea, but it's a difficult one.
All right, we'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.